is my home. I promise to keep it healthy and beautiful. I will love the land, the air, the water, and all living creatures. I will be a defender of my planet, united with friends, I will say.
My name is Commissioner Frank Avila, and I'm a commissioner at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. And today the name of our show is Pigs on Drugs. And with me, I have as our guests, well, we have three guests, is Wanda Leopold. And Wanda Leopold is the president of Organic Networking, founded in March 2005. Wanda is the expert in connecting organic farmers with restaurants. So if anyone out there that has an organic farm and it has a restaurant here in the Chicagoland area, contact Wanda Leopold because she is the expert in connecting organic farms with the restaurants. Our second guest is Larissa McKenna. Larissa is FACT Associate Director and previously served as a coordinator of the Keep Antibiotic Working Coalition. She has a Master's of Public Health degree in Environmental Health and a Master's degree in Food, Agriculture, and the Environment from Tufts University. And as I mentioned, she's the coordinator for Keep Antibiotic Working. And our third guest is Richard Wood. Richard Wood is the Executive Director of FACT, Food Animal Concern Trust, based in Chicago, coming to this position in 1995. During the last few years at FACT, Mr. Wood helped organize Keep Antibiotic Working, a national coalition addressing agricultural use of antibiotics. He's also represented consumer groups and successfully negotiating an agreement with the FDA and the egg industry to require salmonella testing on all United States farms. Mr. Wood is also leading effort to improve the national response to the threat of mad cow disease, and he directs FACT's new research project on dairy farms in the Southwest to identify management steps that will improve cow health and farms. Mr. Wood received both Master's in Theology and Doctor of Ministry degrees from Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C., and served as FACTS under a special appointment from the United Methodist Church. I'm glad to have you on my show. And as I mentioned, the name of our show is Pigs on Drugs. And you know, Wanda, why do you have your group networking, organic networking, and why are you involved with Pigs on Foods, this group?
Well, I started my business in 2005 in order to help family farmers, organic family farmers, get their product to market to grocery stores and restaurants. And I actually met Rich at the Family Farm Trade Show at Navy Pier. So we go back a little while, and I remember meeting him at the party, the fundraising party, and talking about his group, and I said, well, organics are finally hitting Chicago, and I'm going to work for the farmers. So we've kept in touch all these years, and it's been great.
Well, I'm glad that you met Rich, because I met you, and through you I met Rich Wood. Mm-hmm. And now, besides meeting you, I also met Larissa McKenna. And Larissa, why are you involved? You have a Master's of Public Health degree in Environmental Health. And is this what you like to do to help society, help us save the world?
Well, I mean, this is a antibiotic resistance, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more. It's a major public health threat, and it's not being addressed from the agricultural sector as much as it is from the human side of things. So this is a perfect example of where agriculture and environment and public health all connect. So it's something that I've studied and I hope to, change.
Now, Rich, what is FACT's mission? And FACT stands for, again, Food Animal Concern Trust.
Well, FACT is concerned about how food is produced, how the animals are treated, and what benefits it has for consumers. FACT's mission is to improve the welfare of farm animals, We address public health concerns related to the safety of meat, milk, and eggs. We're concerned about broadening economic opportunities for family farmers and also about reducing environmental pollution. So we want to connect good farming practices with healthy people, and that's why it's a delight to be here also with Wanda, who's about that at a very direct end, and Larissa working on it from a policy end and in fact putting it all together.
And what are you working to accomplish then?
Well, on antibiotics, what we are working to do is...
And Sherry, could you please show the slide 8 on keep antibiotics working?
Larissa and I work with a coalition of a number of consumer, agriculture, environmental, and public health groups that together have a constituency of about 9 million people across the nation. And we're dedicated to eliminating the routine use of antibiotics in food animal production, because when you use antibiotics routinely over long periods of time on healthy animals, you're creating resistant bacteria that then get passed on to consumers and becomes a public health threat.
Now, in chart 9, you have a chart, a pie chart, and it shows in the pie chart the percentage of antibiotics used in the United States.
Right.
And Sherry, there's a pie chart on the screen. Could you explain that?
You bet. The problem, we're not at all opposed to antibiotics being used to treat illnesses in animals, antibiotics used therapeutically. Of course, there are niche markets where in organic agriculture you're not to use antibiotics at all. But this coalition is coming together around a concern not over therapeutic uses, but over non-therapeutic uses. And what that means is when antibiotics are simply used to make the animal grow a little bit faster or to prevent disease when animals are raised in horrible conditions. And so that's called non-therapeutic uses. And 70% of all antibiotic uses in the U.S. are used simply to prevent disease or to promote growth in animals. 70% is used non-therapeutically with farm animals. And as you know, the doctor tells you always when you take antibiotics to complete the dose and to take the full dose.
Yes.
Well, with farm animals, with the 70%, the dose is very low, put in the feed and water, and fed over a prolonged period of time. The consequence is that resistant bacteria results. And when you're like me, you rush home from work, you go to the freezer, you pull out a pork chop, you throw it in the microwave, then you cook it a little bit, you sit down and eat it before the evening news is over. Yeah. Chances are that you're eating resistant bacteria.
Which have an effect on the human being.
That's right. And then it stays within us, and then if I were to get sick from a foodborne illness, went to the doctor, they give me an antibiotic, and guess what? It's not going to work. Right. It's not going to be as effective.
And they're putting this in livestock, like in slide 10, and in slide 11, human beings, and Sherry's going to have it on the screen, and this is what you're talking about.
That's right. 11 million pounds of antibiotics are used subtherapeutically in low doses for hogs alone in the U.S. Around 11.5 million pounds are used in broilers as well, and they're learning how to move away from that. But right now, there are as many antibiotics used in low doses in Iowa alone as are used in humans across the nation for treating real disease in humans. And that's not right. We want our food to be safe.
And as they use more of it, and as we eat it, our resistance is going to become lower, and then they have to invent more drugs then, right? Because they have to invent a drug to overcome this antibiotic resistance that we have.
That's right. We're talking about the basic antibiotics, the penicillins,
the tetracyclines, everything that your doctor might give to you. 7 different classes.
7 different classes? And, you know, and that also has an effect on the environment, because as they give it to livestock, any livestock, pig, cattle, chickens, they have to eliminate that also.
That's right.
And it goes into the soil, or it goes into runoff into our streams, and then our streams get polluted.
That's right. What they're finding, I mean, so you feed 11 million pounds of antibiotics in low doses to pigs. They excrete half of that into the lagoons and the manures and all, and then that runs off. And so not only do we have a concern about eating food produced that way, but it does impact the environment as well through their excretion of those antibiotics and the residues that are left, it goes into the water, into the groundwater, it goes into the environment, and then it becomes a problem for all of us as well, even if we don't eat meat.
Yeah, because we are starting to face a problem now in our water supply and the quality of the water also. And this is what we're facing up here in the Midwest. Didn't I read in the paper a couple weeks ago where 5 persons died going down into some kind of a pit
Right.
where the methyl gas affected them?
So that was methane gas.
Methane gas?
Right. But these slurry ponds that they have, now I'm not sure if that was methane related to that or if it was.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. But the slurry ponds are dangerous places to be, but they are self-contained areas where on these huge confinement facilities where they raise thousands and thousands of pigs, the slurry, the manure, is pulled off and goes into this holding tank, this
Yes.
lagoon or facility. Now they're supposed to be created in a way that there's no danger of runoff or them being flooded or whatever, but even as they are currently constructed, a University of Illinois study found that seepage from these facilities was found in the groundwater 750 feet away from where those ponds were, and it was the same drugs they were finding in that seepage as were being fed those animals. So it is a problem for the environment, and it is a problem for human health. And we see the answer as not something that the cities should have to deal with. I mean, there are problems from human health that you need to be concerned about, but we shouldn't just ship this downstream, either through our food supply or through the rivers. We need to stop it at its source. That's why FACT and Keep Antibiotics Working wants to end the routine use of antibiotics to simply make pigs grow faster or animals have prevention from disease. We want that to end on the farm.
No, we live up here in God's country, in Illinois. They call this God's country because of our fine farmland.
Right.
And I guess God's country is all in the Midwest here because of our farms. How many pigs and other farm animals are raised here in Illinois and the Midwest?
Well, we have about 4.2 million pigs being raised in Illinois and around 16.4 million pigs being raised in Iowa. So we're a real center of, and most of those animals are being raised inside in highly concentrated areas that are then creating, tons and tons of pounds and pounds of waste that have to be addressed. And in Illinois, Illinois ranks 11th in terms of the use of low levels of antibiotics in food animal production. So we're 11th on the scale. Iowa's number 2 on the scale.
Oh.
And so in terms of this practice of feeding antibiotics to healthy animals, we're right up there in the upper percentile, causing the problems that we have to deal with our food and our environment.
And on the screen we show a farm to kitchen on the screen right here, and so all of this livestock, as you mentioned, pigs, cattle, and chicken. They give them all of this antibiotics, and we bring it right to the kitchen.
That's right. We want to make, and Keep Antibiotics wants to make our breakfast and our dinner tables a safe place to eat. And we don't want to have to sit down and worry about whether we're ingesting resistant bacteria that's going to make it difficult for us to treat illnesses later on. So we want to go back to the farm and have the practice of feeding antibiotics to food animals that are already healthy. We want to see that practice stop.
As I mentioned, I'm a commissioner at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, and we're having study sessions on how to dispose of pharmaceutical drugs because our government gave us a couple of ways to dispose of them. Rich, one is if you have cat litter, you mix it with your cat litter. If you drink coffee, you mix it with your coffee grounds. And they suggest use some of it flush down the toilet, which we do not approve. And so I'm just wondering if there's been any statistics on if you eat healthy meat, livestock that doesn't have all of these antibiotics in there, how healthier a person would be, and in turn they don't have to take as many prescription drugs. And I think this could be a good research study for someone out there to make. Because what kind of drugs are you concerned about?
Well, we're concerned about the drugs that they use in agriculture for these non-therapeutic uses, the same ones that are used in human medicine, the 7 classes of drugs, including the penicillins, the tetracyclines. And in answer to your question, which was,
we're taking so much drugs that if we eat
right.
good meat, organic meat. Let's call it organic meat because organic doesn't use antibiotics. But if we use meat that's from organic type of livestock
Right.
food, that might make us a little more healthier. We're eating healthier food, and that would make us healthy, and we take less prescription drugs. And then we have less to dispose of and less going through our human weight and our human.
Well, sure. I mean, they have shown, like with grass-fed beef, where antibiotics are not used, that grass-fed beef does have some qualities to it that are better for you than if you're raising beef that was raised conventionally. But there are other steps also that consumers take. You know, as the burden is placed on you as a commissioner to find ways to dispose of all these devices, we have and are proposing steps that consumers can take too, simply when they go to the grocery store and are shopping there, that consumers can make choices as they shop and as they move from day to day that will have a positive impact on the kinds of ways that food animals are raised and that food is produced. Yeah.
It's just about educating the consumer and educating the buyers too, because you have to get that into the grocery store first and into the restaurants and convincing them that they're not going to take a loss if they spend a little more money, that they can charge more money and people will pay that. There needs to be a consumer demand. So consumers need to go to the restaurants and say, I want this food and I will pay for it.
Yeah.
And because a conventional buyer, this is something very new to them and they're not educated about it. So but when consumers say that this is what they want, then they are going to respond that way.
And in the long run, you're staying more healthy.
Yes.
And you're using less prescription drugs because they say the older we get, we'll take 8, 10, 30 types. I mean, if we're really sick, that will take maybe 20 prescriptions a day. And maybe and we take it in our system and we eliminate that through our human waste, and it goes through our sewer treatment plant, and our sewer treatment plant does not treat it, then it goes into the environment.
Well, the secret is to take drugs that are prescribed to you, not to take drugs that aren't prescribed. And when you're eating, meat where the animal has been fed low doses of antibiotics and you got resistant bacteria, that's a poor way to deal with resistance and with bacteria and with the spin-off of antibiotics. So if you stop the use at the front end in terms of what is fed to pigs, then you will be healthier in terms of responding to the disease later on down the pike. But as Wanda was saying, it really has to do with consumer choice and decisions that are made in the grocery store. And we're building on that as well and saying that Congress needs to follow the lead of places like McDonald's, where McDonald's has said to its suppliers that we're not taking any pork products where these pigs have been raised with these non-therapeutic uses of antibiotics.
I didn't realize that.
That's right. And so we're saying to Congress, do what McDonald's is doing, or do what this company is doing, or do what that farmer is doing, or do what Wanda's doing, and put legislation in place that will require every farm across the U.S. to no longer use these important medical antibiotics to feed them to healthy animals. And we have legislation before us in Congress that we hope our members will support in Congress and cause this change to happen.
So the farmer uses these antibiotics to make them grow faster so they could put them on the market faster? Is that the reason?
That's
and does that create a bigger market profit for them, or is they just do it the regular way, they'll make the same amount of profit?
Well, the margin of profit for farmers is a very slim margin, and so what one does, they all seem to do.
Yes.
And with this legislation, it will create a level playing field so that no farmer will be doing, using antibiotics as growth promoters and another one won't. They'll all be phasing off using these antibiotics. And there are plenty of farmers today who are not using growth promoting antibiotics in raising their pigs, chickens, and cattle. And we want to see all farms move in that direction. There's some, even Tyson's chicken company is no longer using these growth-promoting
Yes.
antibiotics for the meat that they sell in grocery stores. So it can be done. And and people say, well, will it be more expensive for consumers? Well, not necessarily so. The National Academy of Sciences did a study, and they found that over a year's time, it will cost about $10 per person if meat was produced in this way without using these medically important antibiotics. And I spend $10 a year easily on candy. I mean,
Oh, yes.
so that's no big impact, and I can afford to do that, and I think everybody can, to have healthier food on our table.
And you know, we're talking about insurance, health insurance for everyone here in the United States. Here in Illinois, they're having a problem in Springfield where the governor wants to have health insurance for everyone, and everyone says we can't afford it. But one way to staying healthy is like what you're doing, is making sure that what we eat is healthy, that what's on our plate is healthy. And you know, there's a chart there that was just on the screen, 13, where welfare claims on eggs. Now, is this what you were talking about? Cage-free, free roaming, free walking, free running, organic. I know Wanda tells me she buys organic egg. And Sherry, could you bring out, there's 13. This slide here. You want to make any comments on this slide?
Fortunately for what Wanda's working on with the organic certified products, you know, that's the only product out there that is certified to be produced the way that the standards say it should be produced. With everything else, it's buyer beware. And I don't know, Larissa, if you want to talk about that at all.
Buyer beware?
It is, yeah.
Well, I mean, one perfect example of this is the word natural. So we see natural on many products, meat, cereals, anything we see in the grocery store. And really natural doesn't mean that much because people assume that it means, you know, the animals were raised outside. They weren't giving hormones or antibiotics, but really it just means that the synthetic preservatives and the way they process it is to a certain standard. So it's kind of a deceptive to consumers and what, you know, I guess most people believe. So we're working on that with the different regulatory agencies at the federal level to kind of clarify that and hopefully bring about some strong labeling claims.
Because basically, outside of the organic label, if I'm a producer or a farmer, I can put on that label anything I want. And what we're concerned about at FACT, Food Animal Concerns Trust, is that people who want to buy a humanely produced product or something that was produced without antibiotics, they want to be able to go into the store and pick up that carton or pick up that package and really believe what it says. And right now there's very little regulation outside of the organic label that's going on in that regard. And so the only way you can really know is to go talk to the farmer, buy the product at the farmer's market, or go talk to your grocer and say, okay, where is this meat coming from? And then to buy in those terms. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of providing consumers the confidence that the meat that they buy is produced the way that they say it is.
And that's why we have to have a lot of disciplines, right, Wanda?
Right. And we, and that was one of the things I really liked about FACT is they have, because I don't want, when I go over to see my farmers, I tell them I really don't want to see the animals if they're going to be used for food. I don't want to see the hogs. Yeah. And I should be a vegan, but I'm not. I still do eat meat.
Vegan, yeah.
But they make sure that the claims stand up. They go to the farms and they make sure they're actually doing these standards. So, because even with certifications, people are so skeptical and they'll say, oh, it's not really true. I don't really believe it. With fair trade, I actually talked to a coffee house owner, and he was from Pakistan, and I said, well, I have fair trade organic syrups that you could put in your fair trade organic coffee, and he said, I don't believe in that fair trade certification. I think they're hurting third world people. I think they're cheating them. I said, no, that he had it all backwards.
Yeah.
So you never know how people sometimes. The label actually they don't believe it, so it's difficult. There are other certifications like what FACT does with the American Humane Association with Free Farmed and humanely raised and handled. So there are other certifying agencies that aren't organic, but they'll have that. So I have a dairy farm, and they're pastured cows, and they don't have the antibiotics or growth hormones, but they're not certified organic. They do have the certifications for humane handling of the animals, and so there are different levels of it, because the organic becoming, we talked about that, becoming certified organic is a long process and it is expensive, but it's a great goal and there's different steps to it. There'll be integrated pest management. That's one of the steps, getting towards organic. So more and more farmers are seeing that this is lucrative. This is something that can help them stay in business and make more money. And with more consumers understanding that it is important to know how the animals are raised, because you'll hear the argument, well, who cares? You're going to eat them. They're going to be killed
At the
anyway.
end, yeah, at the end.
Yeah, but you have to realize you want to be eating a sick animal that they had a tortured, sick, and that's what you're going to be eating and putting in your body. So it's just educating.
Sure. And that's why Cook County, the people live, we have 5 million people living here in Cook County. And just compared to Illinois, Iowa, throughout the whole United States. And that's why not only should Cook County or City of Chicago be concerned, but the whole world should be concerned of what we're eating.
That's right. And we want consumers to be able to be empowered to have control over what they do eat, and to do that in the choices they make in the grocery store, going to farmers markets like the Green City Market, where they can talk to the farmer, ask how the food was raised, and then to support legislation, like legislation that CAW is working on, KAW, Keep Antibiotics Working, that ends the routine use of antibiotics with food animals that are healthy.
And Keep Antibiotics Working. This is what your group is doing, what FACT started, correct?
We were a part of that coalition with
so it's a whole coalition.
Right, of humane, environmental, public health, consumer organizations, with a total membership of 9 million people.
9 million people
that are working for change, working to make the dinner table a safe place to eat.
And have they seen a turning around result of since your group been started and informing the public about Keep Antibiotics Working?
We've seen some remarkable change.
Well, sure. Rich mentioned that there are some big suppliers, some big producers like Tyson and Smithfield, they do pork. They've actually adopted policies that said we're going to raise our animals with fewer antibiotics. So that's huge.
And now I'm talking about on the health-wise, on patients going to the doctor. Have you, that we probably won't know for another 5 years on that.
About resistant infections?
Yeah, resistant, yeah.
It's really hard because there's not the data here that we need to really measure that. In other countries like Denmark, they know how many antibiotics are used. They know who gets sick. They know how antibiotics are being used on farms. We don't have that data in the U.S., and we've asked Congress for that data as well.
So you hear that, Congress? We need this research.
Absolutely.
On this type of data that they're doing in Denmark.
That's right.
And we should have all the voters write to their congressmen saying we should have this type of research, and so we could tell the people, look, and keep our health insurance down. This will keep everything down, the cost if we eat proper food.
Absolutely.
In Denmark. So how long have they been doing that?
Oh, they've been doing
I will save the earth.